David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Well, it happened. Democrat Doug Jones has defeated serial alleged child sex abuser Roy Moore in deeply, deeply red conservative Alabama, but just barely. Let's look at the results from yesterday's special election, of course, to fill the seat previously held by now Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Doug Jones, the Democrat, winning with just a hair under half of the vote, defeating Roy Moore by about 1.5% of the vote, which worked out to just under 21,000 votes. You'll notice that the difference between them, under 21,000 votes, the total number of write-ins, nearly 23,000 votes, a bigger share of write-ins than the difference between Doug Jones and Roy Moore. And we'll talk about the implications of that because there was a bit of a write-in campaign, even from some Republicans over the last few days, and that may have actually sealed it for Doug Jones. Let's talk about the implications for Democrats, and I'll talk about the implications for Republicans. For Democrats, this is a major win. Now, it's not a landslide win. It is not a politically decisive win that suggests that in 3 years, when there is the next election for this seat, it's going to go to a Democrat by default. It's possible, but it's not the most likely thing. But this is a major win for Democrats because it's a major loss for Trump, number one. But we also don't want to forget about the fact that a Democrat hasn't held this seat for something like 25 years. And if Democrats are winning in Alabama, yes, against one of the worst candidates in the history of candidates, if Democrats are winning in Alabama after 25 years, what might happen in the midterms in 2018? That is a sign that is a positive sign for Democrats. And there is one more Democratic vote in the Senate. And it's at a time when Democrats really need it, right? It's not the most progressive Democratic vote, that of Doug Jones, but still, it's Alabama, right? You'll take anything you can get that's to the left of a Republican there. And when it comes to the agenda of Trump, that extra vote may actually be able to stop some pretty important elements of the Trump agenda. For Trump, this is terrible in every way, right? Number one, first, Donald Trump endorsed Luther Strange in the Republican primary in Alabama. He was running against Roy Moore. Roy Moore won the primary. Trump immediately deleted tweets where he had supported Luther Strange. We then learned about multiple allegations of child sexual assault against Roy Moore. And then after that, Trump came out and endorsed Roy Moore, even going to Alabama for what was just a general rally, but clearly it was meant to be a sort of de facto rally for Roy Moore. And then Roy Moore lost, right? But the ways in which this is a loss for Trump are huge. Number one, another Trump-endorsed candidate lost. Yeah, he didn't endorse him till close to the end, but it was an endorsement and another Trump-endorsed candidate lost. Number two, when it comes to policy, this might directly impact the ability of Republicans to get Obamacare repealed if they're going to take that back up at some point in the new year. This win by Doug Jones could directly impact whether the tax cut, or I call it the tax hike bill, depending what you call it, is going to pass once it gets back to the conference version. And then big one, number three, remember how Trump said that if he had known that his Attorney General Jeff Sessions was going to recuse himself on Russia-related matters, he would have selected someone else for Attorney General to begin with. Well, this is also a seat that wouldn't even have been open for a special election had Jeff Sessions not been made Attorney General. Just imagine the loser failure of Donald Trump here. He selects an Attorney General who immediately recuses himself on Russia, which directly impacts Trump. Then the seat that his decision vacates ends up having the worst Republican candidate in recent history run for it and lose. And it gives a seat that has been read for decades to Democrats. Very low energy for Trump, as he likes to say. And Trump is just panicking on Twitter to try to distance himself from Moore after endorsing him. It started sort of okay last night. Donald Trump tweeting last night just after 11 p.m. Eastern time. Congratulations to Doug Jones on a hard-fought victory. The write-in votes played a very big factor, but a win is a win. The people of Alabama are great, and the Republicans will have another shot at this seat in a very short period of time. It never ends. Actually, he was right. I mean, the margin of victory was smaller than the number of write-in votes, which were believed to be overwhelmingly overwhelmingly for Republicans and thus favorable to Doug Jones. Reasonable point from Donald Trump until he follows up with another tweet this morning where he says, the reason I originally endorsed Luther Strange and his numbers went up mightily is that I said Roy Moore will not be able to win the general election. I was right. Roy worked hard, but the deck was stacked against him. Right. Trump knew all along Moore wouldn't win. Don't blame him for this. Pandering once again.
I think Trump is the only person who can turn two losses in the same race into a win. And if he loses in 2020, he'll probably try to do the same thing. This was a big victory for me.
No question about it. And you can't really exculpate Trump from blame here, because remember, this all happened because Trump pulled Sessions out of the Senate to become Attorney General. Trump is trying to paint himself as the guy who, if you had just paid attention, he endorsed Luther Strange, then Republicans would have won. You wouldn't even have had a special election if it weren't for your decision to take Jeff Sessions, the lie-riddled and totally depraved senator, and made him Attorney General to begin with.
How could he have foreseen that, though? You'd think that an Alabama Senate seat would be safe in Republican hands.
I
guess.
It's
really just because Roy Moore was a horrible candidate and the multiple sexual misconduct allegations.
And that's what I want to talk about next. There's this line that pundits all over corporate media have been lauding Republicans in Alabama, saying, you know, even Republicans in Alabama weren't going to go with the serial accused child sex assaulter. That was even too much for Alabama Republicans. No, it wasn't. Most Alabama Republicans voted for the accused serial child sex assaulter. A few didn't, and it happened to be enough that Doug Jones ended up winning by a slim margin. But praising Alabama Republicans like they've all decided they had their so-called come to Jesus moment where they said, we can't vote for the accused serial sex assaulter. No, they didn't. They mostly voted for him. Alabama Republicans at large did a horrible thing here, but enough of them, I don't know how many are in my audience, did the right thing and didn't vote for Roy Moore. And really, we have black people to thank here. And David, what are you talking about? Black people to thank? Put up the exit polling, which showed us how this race broke down based on both race and gender. 72% of white men voted for Roy Moore. 63% of white women voted for Roy Moore. But it was the black men and women who together made up 28% of the total electorate that by more than a 93% margin, and black women by a 98% margin, did not vote for Roy Moore. They really are the ones who flipped this. Had it been left just to the average Republican, Roy Moore would be the senator right now.
And what's interesting is Roy Moore said that he'd want to do away with all the amendments after the 10th Amendment,
right?
Which includes the 13th Amendment banning slavery, the 15th Amendment allowing blacks to vote, and the 19th Amendment allowing women to vote. So apparently black voters got the message here that Roy Moore is not your guy, but white women didn't.
Roy Moore would have won with probably 80% of the vote had he already successfully gotten rid of those amendments that apparently he finds so distasteful. So a win for Democrats. Don't expect that Doug Jones is going to be reelected in 2020 because these were very specific circumstances. I hope he is. I hope he runs and is reelected. Major win, and use this to the advantage of the Democrats until that 2020 election. Yesterday, as we were waiting for the results from the Roy Moore, Doug Jones, Alabama special Senate election, which ultimately Doug Jones won, defeating the alleged serial child sex assaulter Roy Moore, all sorts of interviews were happening on television with campaign surrogates. And one of these surrogates is Roy Moore spokesman Ted Crockett. You're going to like Ted, I think. Roy Moore has previously said that he doesn't believe Muslims should be allowed in Congress. Now, that's an obviously unconstitutional position from a guy who claims to be all about the Constitution, but that's not at hand. That's not the subject of today's discussion. This guy, Ted Crockett, goes on CNN. Jake Tapper interviews him and asks him, perfectly reasonable question. He's the spokesman. Explain to us why Roy Moore doesn't believe Muslims should be allowed to serve in Congress. And the spokesman says, well, listen, you got to swear on a Christian Bible to be in Congress. And if you're Muslim, you're not going to be able to believably swear an oath of office on a Christian Bible. And Jake Tapper explains to him, no, you choose what you swear an oath on. You can choose a Christian Bible or a Hebrew Bible or a Quran or nothing at all. It doesn't really matter. And Roy Moore's spokesman seems so stunned, so taken aback that he went totally silent. Now, if you're listening to this and not watching, you might think, oh, David, you extended the silence to make it seem like it was longer than it really was. No, no, no. We're going to play this clip for you as it appeared originally on CNN. The silence has not been extended. It is its full cringeworthy reality. Take a listen to this.
Judge Moore has also said that he doesn't think a Muslim member of Congress should be allowed to be in Congress. Why? Under what provision of the Constitution?
Because you have to swear on the Bible. When you are before, I had to do it. I'm an elected official, 3 terms. I had to swear on a Bible. You have to swear on a Bible to be an elected official in the United States of America. He alleges that a Muslim cannot do that ethically, swearing on the Bible.
You don't actually have to swear on a Christian Bible. You can swear on anything, really. I don't know if you knew that. You can swear on a Jewish Bible.
Oh, no, I swore on the Bible. I've done it 3 times.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you've picked a Bible, but the law is not that you have to swear on a Christian Bible. That is not the law. You don't know that? All right, Ted Crockett.
I don't know. I know that Donald Trump did it when we made him president.
Because he's Christian and he picked it. That's what he wanted to. That's what he wanted to swear in on. Ted Crockett with the More campaign. Good luck tonight. Thank you so much for being here. My panel will react when we get back.
Merry Christmas, Jay.
Thank you, sir.
I love at the end telling Jewish Jake Tapper Merry Christmas. Just like every detail about it is perfect. Well, Trump did it. He swore on a Bible. The guy's mouth was hanging open and he was doing this slow blink, which makes it. His brain seemed to malfunction, right? How could it be a choice to swear on a Christian Bible? It seems just impossible. This is possibly the dumbest and most confused I've ever seen a member of Homo sapiens look in the history of television and the endless number of hours of political interviews that I've ever watched.
I used to just think that these people wanted the U.S. to be a Christian theocracy.
They
now
think
I
it
think
is.
they actually think it is, and that no wonder why they want the 10 Commandments to be in courthouses.
Yeah, if you believe that everyone has to swear on a Christian Bible to be an elected member of office, why wouldn't you think it's fine for the 10 Commandments to be on public property? Quite literally, confirmation bias and fallacy by example. He's only ever seen people swear on Christian Bibles, so you must be legally required to do that. Just so embarrassing, really shocking. And the problem is that this is like playing chess with your dog, right? It doesn't matter how obviously you win. The dog's not going to notice. And that's probably what a lot of people who supported Roy Moore would react to how they would react when they see this, which is, what's the big deal? Yeah, you should be swearing on a Christian Bible.
He really thought that he had the winning argument here.
He really did. Hey, Trump swore on it. I swore on it. Unbelievable. And the guy that was represented, that this person represents, Roy Moore, he almost won, right? So we are just only by the tiniest bit out of the woods. Send me your thoughts about this. I'm on Twitter at @DPacman. Show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Today's new member of the day is Michael Anderson. Michael, thank you so much for being a David Pakman Show member. Membership is, of course, the top funding source for our program. You can learn more and get access to the bonus show and the commercial-free audio podcast and the commercial-free video feed, which is just for members at davidpakman.com/membership. And you can also, with your membership, get a free 2018 David Pakman Show calendar, which are now available with all original, 100% original viewer-created cartoon artwork and other artwork. It's fantastic. Get the calendar free if you go to davidpakman.com/calendar18. You can also make a pledge of as little as $1 per month at patreon.com/davidpakmanshow. And yes, more and more people foaming at the mouth from excitement that we are now accepting cryptocurrency contributions. Learn more at davidpakman.com/cryptocurrency. Let's get into this week's Hatriot Mail What is Hatriot Mail? This is Hatriot Mail.
Brace yourselves for the only information that can successfully penetrate a tinfoil hat. Hatriot Mail. Written by patriots who hate David Pakman.
Right.
Because America. And because freedom.
Okay, alert. This week's Hatriot Mail contains what may be a new slogan. For what, I don't know, but it may be a new slogan for something. Take a listen.
David Pakman, the cuck starts here. This is fake news. Unsubscribe. All you Jews are sick. David is a beta cuck soy boy communist bitch, as well as his regressive followers. Mexicans and Muslims here to destroy America. You know what's funny? There are quite a few congressmen that have visible and audible signs of Alzheimer's, dementia. Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, John Conyers. What do they all have in common?
The cuck starts here. That is quite a slogan. I don't know for what. It's not going to be the theme for the David Pakman show, but somebody should use that for something.
And he said unsubscribe too, which leads me to believe that he was subscribed for a while.
At some point, yeah. I do want to ask you though, Pat, as a vegan, you might be familiar with this term. What is a soy boy? There's been a couple times now that people, not just in Hatriot Mail, but on like on YouTube and stuff, they refer to me as a soy boy.
Yeah, I think the InfoWars people and Paul Joseph Watson put out a video about how soy is bad for your health.
Yeah.
And it's been debunked many times over. And not only that, one of the products that Paul Joseph Watson advertises for has soy in it.
Oh, does it really?
Yes.
So
he's a soy boy too, I guess.
Yeah, soy boy. I mean, I know about the... From a digestive standpoint, this is Hatriot Mail. We're talking about digestion of soy. I do believe that I've read some pretty good material about it's. I think unfermented soy is not good for women to have. I think,
and I guess there's debate over if it's healthy for men to have too, because it has estrogen, but it's plant-based estrogen, which doesn't affect human hormone levels.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole scientific discussion that's probably beyond Hatriot Mail.
It's probably beyond the scope of the cuck starting here. Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, anyway, I am soy boy David Pakman, and I'm here to tell you the cuck starts here. You can use the coupon code Hatriot40. This is a weird show. You can use the coupon code Hatriot40 when you get a membership at davidpakman.com/membership. It'll save you 40%. It's like a middle finger to the Hatriots. Okay, I've got kind of I don't like to bum people out, but I do like to tell you what's going on. Earlier this week, I explained to you that as a result of Patreon shifting around how they handled the fees on donations through that platform, the David Pakman Show fundraises through Patreon at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Patreon decided to shift some of the burden of the fees on the platform towards the donor and away from the recipient. And this was a disastrous idea from Patreon, partially because it was a bad idea to begin with, and additionally, because it was messaged terribly and it led to nearly 200 patrons canceling their contributions to the David Pakman Show. I got a voicemail saying, David, do you see what people are saying on your video about the Patreon situation? Here's that voicemail that came in.
Hi, David. This is Sam. I just wanted to say that I think it's really up how you've been getting defunded left and right. So I just became a member, and then I saw your video called Patreon is Killing Us. And oh my goodness, I saw all those comments was really mean. Like, I know that there's a lot of YouTube trolls out there, but damn, do you have a lot of YouTube trolls. So I just wanted to say to you and Pat to the haters and keep doing what you're doing, and good luck.
After we received this voicemail, I said, you know, it's been so busy, I haven't even seen the comments on that YouTube video about the problems we're having with Patreon. And it's absolutely vile and disgusting. People are jumping for joy, proverbially, over the problems we're having with Patreon funding. I'll put just a couple of these comments up on the screen for you. One user called Seeking Truth 2014, wah, I don't want to get a real job, wah. What a nuanced and productive critique of the problem we're having. Huh?
Pretty sure this is a real job, too.
I thought it was. I thought it was. If my accountant has been tricked all this time into thinking that I'm actually working, then I really have to apologize to him. Also, David Cuckman's ship is sinking. Another user on YouTube still begging for money, Get a job, scumbag. Yeah, that comes up a lot, that this isn't a real job. Like, this is a business. It has employees. This is what we do. I get up in the morning, put my pants on 3 legs at a time, and come in here. You know,
you
that's
do
all
what
I
you love. I think that's what they're jealous about.
Absolutely right. Also, glad David Pakman is failing. I think we've got 1 or 2 more here. More. Maybe not 1 more. Good. I hope your centrist, pro-corporate, pro-military intervention, pro-Russia hysteria, and pro-apartheid channel gets wiped out. Same thing happened when we announced that our Amazon affiliate link had been turned off. I mean, just totally canceled. And 2 months of revenue would not be paid to us. People rejoicing in the streets. Trump incorrectly claimed that like thousands of people in New Jersey were cheering 9/11 or something like that. Yeah. We actually have the real evidence that when we lost our Amazon link and Patreon made this change, which really hurt us, there were hundreds and hundreds of people on the internet rejoicing. That we have proof of.
But I mean, we can't let the Hatriots win here. That we can't do.
No, absolutely not. I'm hoping that there are more good people that are silent and are contributing, and that they sort of overpower these scum that want us to fail. Okay, I've got a major story to talk to you about here, about something that is not good that is going on. Remember last week when I told you that alt-right troll Mike Cernovich started a campaign to get friend of the show, Sam Seder, host of The Majority Report, a voice actor on Bob's Burgers, formerly of Air America Radio, formerly of 1 episode of Sex and the City. Anyway, we all know Sam Seder at this point. He tweeted about Roman Polanski about 8 years ago. That tweet was taken out of context to make it seem as though he was sort of minimizing the horrible actions called sexual assault by Roman Polanski. Mike Cernovich, this alt-right troll with a pretty big online following, started a campaign basically to get Sam Seder fired from MSNBC and to have his advertisers pull money from his program. He got fired from MSNBC, did Sam Seder, until eventually MSNBC realized that they had sort of not considered the cynical objectives of Cernovich and his cronies, and MSNBC said they would be reinstating Sam Seder. That's a good thing. Now, the problem is that in defending Sam Seder on the David Pakman Show, I inadvertently got myself on the radar of Mike Cernovich, and he now has created a similar online stink, which is leading to hundreds of emails to Boston College, where I am an adjunct professor, demanding that I be fired for an offensive tweet. I'm going to show you the tweet. I am not going to be deleting the tweet. It is up on my account. I tweeted last night what I thought was a pretty clever tweet, which was, after the results are in tonight, the voters of Alabama are going to have to reckon with the reality that, win or lose, they live in Alabama. Now, when you look at that, you'll see that there are something like close to 2,000 or even more responses to this, a couple hundred retweets. This tweet got a lot of activity. And the reason that it got a lot of activity is that Mike Cernovich, or more likely someone told him about it and then he tweeted about it, decided to go after me for this tweet. First, Mike Cernovich retweeted it. Then he actually screenshotted it and commented saying, "Is this what the media thinks about Alabama?" First of all, the idea that a tweet from me is a tweet that could in any way represent, quote, the media is laughable, right? I host a small independent show. In what way does anything I say reflect what the media thinks about any issue?
Well, this is a sign that we made it, maybe, right?
Right. It's almost flattering in how outrageous it is. But most importantly, of course, my tweet is referring to the fact that Alabamans have been raped and pillaged by Republicans for decades. And I made that clear in a follow-up tweet. There was a recent UN investigation that says Alabama has the worst poverty of the developed world. It's a total disaster. And I clarified that in a tweet where I said, this is a criticism of how Republicans have failed Alabama. Education, healthcare, public infrastructure. It is not a criticism of the people, although there will be plenty to criticize about the people who vote for Roy Moore. Doesn't matter, though. Cernovich's followers, after failing to get Sam Seder fired from MSNBC, are trying to give me the same treatment. They are after me. They are sending tweets to Boston College, where I am an adjunct professor of communications. They are sending emails to Boston College. And I didn't know what to do, because now I'm the target of what I was just trying to talk about last week when it came to Sam Seder. I reached out to Boston College this morning and I explained, listen, this is who Mike Cernovich is. Before you hear about this from anybody else, I want to let you know about what's going on, just so you're aware of the full scope of my tweets, who this guy is, what happened to Sam Cedar, etc. That aside, and hopefully I won't get fired from Boston College, it is endlessly funny to me how the people who claim that there's oppressive political correctness and limits on free speech and no one has a sense of humor anymore and they're against safe spaces, they are apoplectically playing the outrage card here. They are just outraged because I made a joke where they misinterpreted that what I'm doing is making fun of people in Alabama, which if that's what I was doing, it's not really that offensive. I mean, it's a pretty mild joke. And of course, what I was really doing is criticizing the politics of Alabama, which are absolutely atrocious.
I mean, what a snowflake too, right? And this guy has failed over and over again.
Yeah.
Whether it be the Pizzagate conspiracy that completely collapsed, trying to get Sam Cedar fired. He actually went on Alex Jones' show a couple times.
Oh, it was a disaster.
Horrible performance.
Horrible performance. If you haven't seen Cernovich on Alex Jones, check that out. Yeah, I think that maybe there's some element of Cernovich being really angry that he didn't succeed at getting Sam fired. I don't know. I mean, so far, knock on Lucite, I've not yet been fired by Boston College. I picked up thousands of new Twitter followers as a result because this got so much attention. And by the way, the degree of anti-Semitic pond scum that started coming after me after Cernovich sicked them on me last night is really, really stunning.
Yeah, but not surprising, right?
Not surprising at all, no. And finally, I feel bad for the people of Alabama. In Massachusetts, we are somewhat protected from the horrible things that the current federal administration, the Trump administration is doing. We're still going to suffer if Trump gets his way on all fronts, but I really feel bad for people like in Indiana, where I recently was, an economically ravaged state that is only going to be further crushed by the Trump agenda. Alabama is another example. I actually feel bad. The last thing I'm doing is making fun of the people of Alabama. I am really feeling bad that they are being crushed by the agendas of politicians like Donald Trump. That's what's going on. I will let you know if this becomes a firing from Boston College. You can discuss this with us on Reddit at davidpakman.com/REDDIT.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
It's great to be joined today by Tom Nichols, who is a professor and also author of the book, The Death of Expertise. This is a really interesting topic to me, and I'm so glad to have you on to talk about it. The idea of expertise, particularly in the media world and in the political world, has been an increasingly important topic, really no matter what political issues one follows. Give us sort of a general sense of what you identified as being an issue within the world of expertise that led you to write this book in the first place.
Well, what I initially reacted to was not people doubting expertise. I mean, that's normal. If you're a professional, you kind of get used to that. I mean, people seek second opinions from doctors. They go get a second opinion from a lawyer. They get multiple bids from contractors. What led me to write the initial blog post, because this wasn't even a book, it was kind of a rant, was people deciding that they were smarter than experts. And specifically, in one evening, people who decided they were smarter than me about Russia. I had a young person tell me, we were talking about the Edward Snowden business, and a young person said to me, Tom, I don't think you understand Russia. Now, I'm a Russia expert, a Russian-speaking Russia expert. I've been in the business for 30 years. And that finally kind of, popped my top when someone said, let me explain Russia to you. And this had actually been germinating for a while. I'd been talking up until that point with people who were experts in things like intelligence, doctors, you name it, just in random conversations where they said, people keep lecturing me about what I'm good at. And that's what kind of triggered the idea. It wasn't that people doubt experts or have concerns about expertise. It was the experiences of my experiences along with those of other experts and professionals who were really puzzled by people explaining, I suppose, a lot of women have said to me, this is what mansplaining feels like. but people explaining your own area of expertise back to you as though you don't really understand it.
Yeah, and I've noticed that there are particular, we don't have to get into them, but there are particular political issues where this is really prevalent. One is certainly climate change and climate science, and there's a lot of others that we could talk about. It seems that there is this complexity because you do, on the one hand, have a logical fallacy called the appeal to authority, right? Suggesting that something either is right or couldn't be right based on the perceived or actual sort of authority of the person making an assertion. But that is very separate from the reality that training and education in subjects do contribute to expertise. So how can we sort of square or put together those two sides?
Well, one of the most important things about the fallacy of the appeal to authority is that most people don't understand it. They don't understand that when someone says, look, you should listen to me about Russia because I'm an expert on Russia, they say, oh, well, that's just an appeal to authority. That's not an appeal to authority. That's presenting your bona fides. An appeal to authority is saying, because I'm, a professor, you should listen to me about, healthcare or exercise or something. People never understand this, that they have really become allergic, that when someone says, look, I'm a doctor, you should listen to me about your heart. They say, oh, that's an appeal to authority. They think that it means any authority is an appeal to authority. And it's an irony that in the death of expertise, when people argue about expertise, they don't even understand the fallacies they're using. And of course, if you correct them, then you're being condescending and an expert and all the things that people hate. I think, though, one way to square this problem is that experts, and I think this is one place I could have improved the book, if I may do some self-criticism, is that experts need to be better about explaining why they're right. I admit that I kind of lose my patience with people who say, well, why should I listen to you? Because at some point you do run out of patience with that. It'd be like a student walking into class every day and saying, well, I know you're the professor, and I know you were hired by Boston College to teach this course, but tell me again why I should listen to you. On the other hand, I think you need to be persuasive, and I think you do need to put out your case, and you do need to be willing to go that distance, as long as people are willing to listen to you in good faith, which I think is another problem in the modern this modern phenomenon of the death of expertise. People just aren't willing to listen.
How much has basically Google, I guess is what we would call it, or the availability of opinion about just about any issue on the internet impacted the sort of perceived credibility of experts?
Well, I find it fascinating that people who don't trust the New York Times, don't trust the Washington Post, don't trust the Wall Street Journal, don't trust college professors, don't trust science, will trust any stray bit of detritus that goes in front of their screen on the internet. I still argue, and I would still argue now, and I argued in the book, that this whole phenomenon predates the internet. I really think this is an outcome of the late 1960s and relevance in higher education and therapeutic models of education and child rearing and a lot of other problems that contributed to an overall increase in narcissism in American society. But the internet is an easy crutch, because it allows us to just find, basically it allows us to confirm anything we already believe. And I find it amazing that people who say, well, I need evidence, and I don't just take the words of experts, will go and type in a search term in Google and just accept whatever pops up in front of their eyes because it's pretty, it's easy to read, it's well presented. One of the great curses of the internet is that anything in 12-point font looks authoritative. And I think that, that is a real problem. It's not the source of the death of expertise, but it's really something that's put it on steroids.
How much does this connect to the sort of pseudo-intellectual movement that's been in the United States now more and more strongly over the last decades? I've made the case, and reasonable people can disagree, but I've made the case that pseudo-intellectualism is in many ways more dangerous than anti-intellectualism. Once you have people reading, Bill O'Reilly's book about the death of Abraham, or the life of Abraham Lincoln, or the death of JFK, or whatever, and believing that they are scholars of history, for example, or reading books by people like Mark Levin and Laura Ingraham or whoever, that their belief that they have sort of explored a variety of viewpoints from experts, et cetera, that can actually be more dangerous than just straight out anti-intellectualism. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, and also if and how this connects to expertise.
Well, I guess I would part company with you on the semantics. I don't think of, Bill O'Reilly's books as pseudo-intellectual. I think of them as anti-intellectual. I really do.
So I guess I should say they are perceived as maybe intellectual by some of the audience for them.
Well, in a way, why do people like Bill O'Reilly's books? Because it seems to arm you with knowledge without actually making you do the work. And I think, pseudo-intellectualism, maybe, this is just a semantic difference, but I don't really encounter pseudo-intellectualism as much as I used to, say, in the 70s or the 80s. People, for example, when I think of a pseudo-intellectual, I think of someone who says, oh, yes, I find Camus so tiresome, when in fact, this person has never read Camus. I have some very deep thoughts on Reconstruction and the post-slavery, period, when, this is not a person who's ever thought about it. Anti-intellectualism says, I don't really need an informed opinion about this. My gut, in fact, my opinion is better about this because I'm just a working Joe. Why Bill O'Reilly's books are better? Because he's not a professor. He's not one of you snotty, overeducated, footnoting kind of intellectuals. He's just an ordinary guy, just like you and me, and that's why his books are great. And I think that's actually more dangerous because it's not just junk; it's tasty junk. It's yummy junk. Books. I tried reading Killing Reagan because it's an area I have a lot of knowledge in. I have some background as a Cold War historian, and I was alive during Reagan and working in Washington. And it's crap, but it's easy to read crap. So it's not even like I guess pseudo-intellectuals lie about difficult books they can't read. Anti-intellectuals really do read bad books and celebrate it and glory in it.
And speaking of textbooks, because you mentioned Bill O'Reilly's not a professor, in the book you have a chapter called Higher Ed, The Customer is Always Right. Can you tell us a little bit about how that factors into this?
Yeah, I think, college, when it was a natural sorting function for, no, let me back up and say college was also, a class-based experience. Wealthier kids went, not every kid, John F. Kennedy went to Harvard and he was a C student. This was not always the province of bright kids. It was often the province of rich kids. But college throughout the 50s and 60s and into the 70s and the 80s served a sort of natural sorting function that, if you went to college because you were really interested in going to college. Now college is a mass experience. We really have internalized this belief that everybody should go to college. And the problem is that devalues a college education because the competition for those tuition dollars, the competition for those tuition dollars really does make colleges, the lower tier colleges, not Harvard and Yale. Harvard and Yale are always going to have their pick of valedictorian. But it makes middle and lower tier colleges have to compete for students and treat them like clients rather than students. And that means that you're not going to fail the customer. You're not going to make them uncomfortable. You're not going to be too challenging. You start advertising, I talk about the book, you start advertising things like dorms that are little apartments so that you don't have to pick roommates that you don't like, rock climbing and kayaking, and basically a whole bunch of things that really have nothing to do with education. When you treat students like clients, you're not treating them like students. College is supposed to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to be where you get challenged, and there are times you should walk out of class really unhappy. But we live in a therapeutic culture where, especially in an educational culture, where the students are always supposed to be happy, and we're always asking them if they're happy. And I think that's really contributing to the inability to keep learning even after college. It doesn't mean much now when a student says, well, I have a university education. That may or may not mean anything anymore. But it convinces that student, I'm smart, I don't really need to learn more than I know, and they're not really equipped to keep learning. And I think that's a real tragedy in Western education.
We've been speaking about the book, The Death of Expertise, with the book's author, Tom Nichols. Thanks so much for talking to us about this. Very interesting.
Thanks for having me, David.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
So yesterday I told you that I had received an email from a viewer with a link to a video that makes it look as though in 2012, on stage with Mitt Romney and his wife Ann Romney, Donald Trump might have grabbed the rear end of Ann Romney. We have the video where we played this video yesterday, and we'll show it to you again today. And it's a moment where Mitt Romney is speaking, and you see Donald Trump sort of shift in a weird way, and Ann Romney seems to almost like be startled into moving slightly forward or shifting her buttocks. And Donald Trump, when that happens, has a really strange look on his face. And again, I presented this not because I necessarily thought anything in particular was going on, but because a viewer had pointed it out to me and it was weird. And I mostly expected that this would disappear and that would kind of be the end of it. Well, a user on our YouTube channel went back and found more video of this same event and pointed out that Ann Romney, as soon as the speech is over, very awkwardly sort of walks away from Trump and doesn't shake his hand or anything. We got a message. There was a comment left on our YouTube channel about this. And it says, David, you could be onto something. Found the original on YouTube. She even seems to frown towards the end. Notice how she quickly leaves the stage. She didn't shake Trump's hand. It seems odd. So I went and looked at that video, and it is exactly as this YouTube viewer describes. Watch Ann Romney as the speech ends, leaning away from Trump and getting out of there just immediately without shaking Donald Trump's hand, kind of stepping away and pointing to someone. Maybe she had to go and speak to somebody in the crowd, whatever. But again, individually, none of these are definitive evidence that Donald Trump did anything. The dynamic is very, very strange here, though. And Ann Romney stepping away and opting not to shake hands with Donald Trump after reacting strangely at a moment where Trump does seem to reach for something with his right hand and then have this weird, doofy look on his face. I don't know. I'm presenting to you what I'm seeing. This is all coming from the audience. I don't know whether we will ever learn any more about this, but it is certainly now two pieces of sort of unusual video from this exact same incident.
Yeah, I wonder how hard it would be to reach out to Ann Romney on this one, maybe. I'm sure she made the decision that if this did happen,
not to say
she
anything.
didn't want to go public with it, certainly in 2012 when Mitt Romney was running.
Yeah.
Or even in the 2016 race when Donald Trump had multiple sexual misconduct allegations made against him.
And it would have been an opportune time for her to say, hey, you know what? When I was on stage in 2012, he did this. So yeah, she could certainly put this to bed with just one sentence. But in the meantime, more and more of our audience thinking, hey, David, there is something weird going on there. Hey, so I have a Keurig on the table with me, and I want to make super clear that this is not a product placement. This is not an advertising of any kind. In fact, I don't like Keurig machines, but I do have a Keurig machine on the desk with me today. What's the backstory of this? You might remember that there was this rash of videos by conservatives angrily destroying and setting on fire their Keurig machines after Keurig pulled advertising from Sean Hannity's Fox News TV show when he sort of seemed to defend Roy Moore by saying at least some of his victims had consented to sexual contact with Roy Moore. And conservatives went crazy destroying their Keurigs. Now, it's no secret that I have serious disdain for the coffee of Keurig machines. I think it's absolutely terrible coffee. Well, Matt, a viewer, got in touch with me and he said, hey, David, listen, I just switched from a Keurig to one that makes good coffee. I was just going to toss this, but I thought since Keurigs come up on your program, maybe I would send you the used Keurig machine. He insisted on sending it in, and now we have it. So the question is, what do we do? Do we destroy the Keurig machine, not for anything having to do with Sean Hannity's program, but simply because the Keurig makes bad coffee? Some people might think we were destroying it over the Hannity thing, which I guess that would be kind of the fun of it if people thought that's why we were destroying it. And it turns out I just don't think Keurigs make good coffee. The other side of it, like the really boring thing to do, would be we just give the Keurig to Pat because he likes Keurigs.
Yeah, big fan of Keurig over here. Although the audience isn't going to decide that. I mean, they'd much rather see you destroy it or me destroy it, I'd imagine.
Or something else,
Makes
right?
better entertainment.
So my question is, what else could we do with this Keurig machine that's been donated? We've acquired it at no cost, right? So we can destroy it, we can do whatever. The lost value of it is not an issue. Matt has generously donated it and said, do whatever you want. Destroy it, set it on fire, blow it up, or just give it to Pat so he can make coffee. I'm open to hearing suggestions from the audience. So that's why I'm talking about this today. The Keurig is sitting here with me. If you have any ideas of what we might be able to do with this thing that would be funny, might help fundraise or whatever, we could give away a signed Keurig if someone wanted it with some fundraising goal. I have no idea. I really
don't know if this will put the Keurig scandal to rest or just reopen the next chapter, right?
I think if you destroyed a Keurig, it might end this entire sort of love affair that has caused so much controversy between you and Keurig if you were willing to destroy it.
It would be a ritual, wouldn't it?
The question is, what would you destroy it with? Like a baseball bat or...
My bare hands?
With your bare hands. How else could a Keurig be destroyed? I don't know.
There's a whole video. People setting it on fire.
Set it on
throwing
fire.
it into a pool.
Yeah, I don't know what else. Running it over with a car would be interesting, actually, yeah. So send in your thoughts. We'll do something with this, but I don't know what people want us to do. And if what you want is for Pat to take the Keurig and for me to never mention it again, that's also an acceptable path forward, right? We're sort of open to that as well. We have a voicemail number. That number is 219-2-DAVID-P. Here is a voicemail that came in today.
So, quick question. I'm assuming you're probably familiar with the show Real Time with Bill Maher.
Yes.
If asked, would you go on it?
Of course.
Thank you.
Yeah. A lot of times we get voicemails like these. Would I be willing to appear? And oftentimes Bill Maher is the one that's mentioned. Of course I would. It would be huge publicity if I was invited onto the Bill Maher program.
Do you think you get the 10-minute interview
No.
or just be one of the panelists?
I think if I were invited on the Bill Maher program, and there's no indication that that's going to happen as of now, although I would love it, and please email them and tweet them and tell them to invite me, I think I would definitely be on the panel. I don't think at this point my status... I'm not Milo Yiannopoulos. You know, Milo gets the 10-minute sit down with Bill Maher. I am not deserving of that.
Milo is so famous that other people decided to pull themselves off of the show because they
merely
didn't want to
because
be in
he was
his
appearing.
spot.
Yeah. So of course I would appear with Bill Maher, and I would encourage people in the audience, hey, listen, if that's something that's of interest, maybe let's get a little campaign going to get me on there. The scope with which that would move the needle for the David Pakman Show is significant. That is a show. I've been on CNN, I've been on Fox News. It did very little in terms of bringing audience to the show. And even sometimes it was a longer appearance. Like on CNN, I was the only guest being interviewed by Aaron Burnett for longer than I was on Fox News. It did barely anything for our web traffic, YouTube subscribers, whatever. I think Bill Maher, an appearance on Bill Maher would do a lot.
Yeah, especially because you think of CNN as more of a general audience. Fox News viewers aren't going to tune into you after because they're conservatives. But Bill Maher's audience is largely progressive.
Yeah, and I think that would actually be huge. I think appearing on the Bill Maher program and the Joe Rogan program, both are formats that would lend themselves to a lot of new people coming into the universe of the David Pakman Show. On the bonus show today, America's healthiest and least healthy states. San Francisco is using robots to drive away the homeless, and people are not happy. And we will talk about human feet washing up on the Pacific Northwest. What is that all about? We will talk about all of those stories and more on today's bonus show. 2 ways to get the bonus show. 1, get a membership at davidpakman.com/membership. 2, become a patron for at least $5 a month at patreon.com/davidpakmanshow. And remember, way over here now, we do have the 2018 calendars available for free with membership at davidpakman.com/calendar18.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.